So in this video I'll be doing a full card breakdown of my predictions for UFC 291. So starting off on the early prelims, we have a welterweight fight between Matthew Semmelsberger versus Uros Medic. And in this fight, I'll be taking Matthew Semi the Jedi Semmelsberger. Don't know why Uros Medic is fighting at welterweight. He's a tall guy. He'll be about the same height as Matthew Semmelsberger, but when it comes to a body weight, he's going to be really undersized in this fight, I think, unless he's bulked up. But I know this is on short notice because Johan Lainez pulled out. Which this fight should be interesting. It should be fun, but just Uros Medic is going to be so undersized. Matthew Semmelsberger is quite literally one of the biggest welterweights you'll ever find. He had amateur fights at light heavyweight against William Knight. So he's a big boy. He punches fucking hard too. As you seen in his last fight against Jake Matthews, dropped him every single round, and then his fight before that, which he should have won against Jeremiah Wells, he pretty much had Jeremiah Wells out twice in the first and second rounds. He punches just insanely hard. Like, I'm not going to talk about his Jason Witt win because Jason Witt has one of the worst chins in the UFC. But look what he did to Nick Diaz's friend. What's his name again? Martin Sano. Look what he did to Sano. Just brutally KO'd him with a right cross 15 seconds in. Now, I don't think he'll do that to Uros Medic. I think this will be a lot more back and forth than that fight. But I think Semmelsberger is going to catch him. I don't know if it will be an out cold KO, or maybe he'll just drop him and win, take the fight by decision. But he's definitely going to get knockdowns here, I think. Medic is coming in with a 4-inch reach disadvantage and obviously a big size disadvantage when it comes to just overall muscle mass. Yeah, I got Semi the Jedi winning this, but it's interesting. I don't know if this is like a permanent move for Uros Medic, or if this is just he wanted to take a fight, like to stay active, so he took a short notice fight against Semmelsberger. But yeah, it's real interesting, but I got Matthew Semmelsberger here. Now moving on, we have Miranda Maverick versus Priscilla Cachoeira, who's actually on a decent run at the moment. But this is like a really hard fight to predict. Firstly, because it's women's MMA, but also because Miranda Maverick she's not, she was on a really good run, but her last fight against Jasmine Judavicius, I probably butchered that. I don't know. She's not who we thought she was, I guess. She lost that fight pretty dominantly from memory. But this fight against Priscilla is going to be a bit different. Priscilla is more of a brawler, very powerful, and Maverick's never been finished. So I'd say she's got a decent chin. And Priscilla's grappling defense, from memory, isn't like the greatest. She's been subbed by Julian Robinson, been subbed by Shevchenko. Obviously, Shevchenko's just a different level, but Julian Robinson, Miranda Maverick are probably on a similar level. And Maverick's got pretty good grappling. So I'll take Miranda Maverick in this fight by decision, I reckon. But not super confident on it. It's a coin toss. It's women's MMA. What's going to happen is going to happen. And now moving on to another fight in the welterweight division. Now this is a short notice fight for Darius Flowers, but we got Jake Matthews versus Darius Flowers. Jake Matthews was originally scheduled against Miguel Beza, but Beza pulled out. So this fight is like a interesting one. Like, Jake Matthews had that really fucking on point performance against Andre Fialho, but then he came in against like a massive power puncher in Semmelsberger where he looked good, but anytime Semmelsberger landed one of them bombs, he just knocked him down. It was like a miracle that he managed to survive the fight to the decision, to be honest. He probably could have won that fight too if he grappled, but I guess after the Fialho fight, he fell in love with his hands and sees himself as a bit of an MMA boxer now, which fair enough. After that Fialho fight, I don't blame him. But with this fight, I think I'm gonna have to take Jake Matthews in this fight. With Darius Flowers, he's had a bunch of boxing fights. Now I know this is MMA, but he's been KO'd. I think he's 1-7 in boxing, and he's been TKO'd and KO'd in all of his losses. Like it's not the best look. He's also been KO'd by Bobby Volker, which I watched that fight, and it was like back and forth, but then he just got caught. And his last win was a weird one where Amirian Galadze, the Georgian welterweight, had a shoulder injury from a slam, which most times out of 10 that's not going to happen. It was like a pile driver that he got him on, which was pretty impressive. But Flowers was talking about that he was going to move down to lightweight his next fight, and he was booked against Eric Gonzalez, but I think he had like a whole situation with USADA. If I remember correctly, there was like he got suspended by USADA. Now I don't really know like the full story of what that is. So I'm not going to guess, but I know he was suspended for about 6 months. I think it was from when he fought Amirian. So maybe we're going to see him look a lot worse than he has in his other fights, just like going off because he got suspended. But I'll take Jake Matthews here I think Jake Matthews gets a TKO here. If he looks how he did against Fialho, I think he can get Darius Flowers out of there. But Flowers is tough, but I think he fights pretty aggressively, and I think that aggression will actually benefit Jake Matthews with his style of boxing that he has. So I'll go with Jake Matthews, but Jake Matthews has something where he just can't beat Americans. So we'll probably get a Darius Flowers upset here, just knowing how Jake Matthews does against Americans. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just him fighting in America or if it's the Americans itself, but it just seems like when he flies all the way over to America, he doesn't put on the best performances. Like a lot of his wins you'll find are like in Singapore, which isn't like a massive flight, or all around Australia, which is really interesting when you look at it that way. I don't really put too much into that. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Jake Matthews here. I hope Jake Matthews wins because he had so much momentum after that Fialho fight. And it's a bit like upsetting for that to all go away. Like if he was to go on a 2-fight losing streak, that'd just be upsetting. But yeah, I'll go with Jake Matthews by TKO or a decision. I think Flowers is pretty tough, but I've got to go with Jake Matthews here, just logically. Then moving on, we got CJ Vergara versus Vincius Salvador. Now, this is another interesting one. We've seen Salvador lose his last fight to Victor Altramano, and before that he KO'd Shannon Ross in the second round on the Contender Series. Now, CJ Vergara had an interesting fight, his last fight against Daniel, is it Laredo now? Okay. He keeps changing his last name. 1 minute he's a Da Silva, then he's a Laredo. Alright, so he's a Laredo again. And in that fight, he was getting beaten up against Daniel Laredo. He got dropped. He was on the way to being finished, and then he just got a comeback finish out of like absolutely nowhere. A ground and pound victory, second round. I just remember it being a crazy fight. And that was 4 months ago, so I'm sure he's recovered. But I'd say Salvador is like more powerful than Laredo, so there's a good shot that Laredo could get this by like a TKO or a knockout, but I'm going to go with CJ Vergara here. I think Salvador did show a lot of flaws in that loss against Victor Altamirano, and I think CJ Vergara's got the style where he can make Salvador pay. But it is an interesting matchup. But I'll take CJ Vergara, I think, by decision. And then moving on, we have a fight in the middleweight division between Roman Kopylov and Claudio Ribeiro. And in this fight, I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov. He's been on a roll lately. Wins against Puna Soriano and Alexei Diccherico. Almost won that Albert Dariah fight as well. Bit of a weird loss that he has to Carl Roberson by rear naked choke, but that was before he took all the time off and developed really good takedown defense. And yeah, he honestly looks like a middleweight Peter Yan. Like the way he fights, even like physically, he looks like a big Peter Yan. It's weird. He's from Siberia as well, so maybe there's like some relation down the line there. And with Claudio Ribeiro, he beat Joseph Holmes, but Joseph Holmes wasn't really UFC level. Like I know Joseph Holmes did get a win in the UFC, but that win was against Alan Amadosky, who's one of the worst fighters that was ever signed to the UFC as well. And then before that, he had a loss to Abdul Razak Al Hassan by finishing the second. So with that being said, I think Roman Kopylov gets him out of there in the second round or the third round. Kopylov is a bit of a slow starter at times. He seems to get his groove going in the second and third round, so I'll take him by second round TKO. It's going to be either the second or third. I'd be surprised if he gets a first round finish here, but be safe and go with the second round stoppage for Roman Kopylov. Then we move on to a matchup in the 170-pound division between Trevin Giles and Gabriel Bonfim. And in this fight, I'm going to go with Gabriel Bonfim. I'm really high on him. I always thought he was the better Bonfim brother. Like a lot of people told me that, and like I thought a lot of people were really high on Ismail after he got his win against Terence McKinney. But I thought Bonfim's performance was way more impressive just to get Munir Lazzez out of there so quickly. And he was like he was bucking, like giving Lazzez some problems on the feet as well. Now, one thing that worries me about Gabriel Bonfim is he really leaves his chin out there when he strikes. Like when he goes in really aggressive, but he leaves his chin right out there. And Trevor Giles does have really good boxing. So we've seen Trevor Giles almost get Michael Morales out of there. If he fought a bit smarter, he generally would have won that fight. But yeah, bit of a bad fight IQ moment where he tried to grapple after rocking Morales was a really dumb move. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, so he's got some momentum at the moment. Trevor Giles does, but as you see, he's been guillotined by Zach Cummings, guillotined by Gerald Meerschaert, been knocked out by Dricus du Plessis, but not a bad loss. Been counter-right to ground strikes by Michael Morales, but I feel like Bonfim has so many different ways to win this fight. Like he could knock out Giles, but I think he's going to get him with a guillotine some way. If he rocks him maybe and guillotines him, but that's just Trevin Giles' guillotine defense obviously isn't the best. I mean, that was 2019, so maybe he's improved in there, but I think we get a rock, and he's going to rock him and then he's going to sub him. That's like a club and sub. That's what I think we're going to get from Gabriel Bonfim. Really good jiu-jitsu. That win against Trey Waters on the Contender Series is like one of the most creative submissions I've ever seen. He got a Von Flue choke, and I was generally shocked. I was like, oh my god, is Trey Waters about to sub him? And I seen a tap, and I didn't even realize that Gabriel Bonfim was tapping him. I was like so shocked in the moment. I was like, what the fuck just happened? But it was a really good performance by Gabriel Bonfim there. Like I'm just super impressed with him. Like I said, the only thing that worries me is his striking defense, but everything else offensively, he's just great. And he's fun to watch as well. Good fighter, big for the weight class too. Like Bonfim's a really like tall guy. His reach isn't the longest, but 6'1" as a welterweight. He's young as well, 25 years old. And Trevor Giles, he's not like an old guy, 30 years old, will be 31 soon, but yeah, it's going to be weird because I think Bonfim's going to be the bigger guy, which is weird because Trevor Giles has fought at light heavyweight and fought at middleweight for most of his career, but yeah, it's going to be a fun fight, I reckon, but I think Bonfim gets an early finish. So I'll go with Gabriel Bonfim here. Alright, going back onto that last fight too with Roman Kopylov and Claudio Ribeiro. Claudio Ribeiro's cardio is not the best, and this being at high altitude is also another factor in why I'm picking Roman Kopylov, just to go back to that fight. I forgot to mention the high altitude and everything. Also with Jake Matthews' fight, I know for a fact that he's been training with a high altitude and preparing himself for the high altitude. So that's just to add that into everything. Also, Uros Medic has probably not had time to like climatize to the high altitude, being in this he taking this fight on short notice. So also Semmelsberger's probably got a big advantage there in the cardio. Yeah, I completely forgot to mention the whole high altitude thing. Which the reason I remembered to bring that up is because going on to the next fight, we have a heavyweight fight between Derek Lewis and Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, where just because his cardio is not the best normally, I just can't see this being any better for him. So I'm gonna have to go with Marcos Rodrigo de Lima in this fight against Derek Lewis. Now Derek Lewis could catch him because it's Derek Lewis. He punches hard, like high altitude's not gonna change how hard he punches. But the fact that he's gonna gas out really quickly, I can just see him wilting against the fence to Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. Like, yeah, I can just honestly see that happening really easily. Just beating him up, maybe even taking Derek Lewis down, like just a gassed out Derek Lewis. Like him taking this fight at high altitude is not very smart for his career. Like if this fight wasn't at high altitude, I'd give Derek Lewis a pretty good shot at winning this. But just unless maybe he's more dangerous when he's super tired, maybe like Rodrigo will underestimate Derek Lewis because he's gassed, and then Lewis will catch him with a bomb. But I'm gonna go with Marcus in this fight. Now moving on, we got a fight in the welterweight division between Stephen Thompson and Michel Pereira, and I think I'm gonna have a really hot take in this fight because but it's high, it's at high altitude. Fuck. Oh. Now see, this makes this interesting because fuck it, I'm gonna go with Michel Pereira. I think he's a strong guy. I think if he really wants to, he can grapple Wonderboy and he could maybe even submit Wonderboy. Wonderboy's takedown defense and like recently has not looked very good. Like even in that Kevin Holland fight, he got taken down. Like Kevin Holland could have like beat him on the ground if he really wanted to, but he decided to stand up and like have a gentleman's agreement. Now I'm really worried with his pick because of the high altitude, but I think Michel Pereira can honestly win this fight with his grappling. Like he submitted Zalim Imidiev. Oh fuck yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce him. That Chechen guy. Like obviously he didn't tap, but he had the choke in, and he's shown really good grappling in his fights. Like he's just a strong, big guy, massive welterweight. Like he's gonna be a lot bigger than Stephen Thompson in this fight. I think if he really fights smart, he can just like grapple fuck Stephen Thompson. But I'm not super confident. Not super confident at all. A lot of these fights I'm not that confident. Which moving on to another fight I'm not that super confident on. We got Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Now originally I was thinking of taking Michael Chiesa, but with the high altitude and Michael Chiesa's cardio like not being the best, I'm actually going to pick. Oh, wait, going back onto that Michelle Pereira fight. I got Michelle Pereira by first round submission. But that's a hot take. It's either he's going to get a submission or he get a decision. Now, moving on to, the Chiesa fight, like I was going to say. I think Kevin Holland's honestly going to sub Michael Chiesa in the second round. Originally, I was thinking Michael Chiesa, but with the high altitude and his cardio not being the best, I'm honestly thinking Kevin Holland by submission. Michael Chiesa is a good grappler, but he always gets subbed in these fights. Like when he fights like a striker, he always gets subbed. Got triangle armbarred by Anthony Pettis. Got rear naked choked by Kevin Lee. Got Dars choked by Jorge Masvidal. Even back in 2008 in his amateur career, he got armbarred by Mark Forsyth. And then he just got held down by Sean Brady. So I think we could see Kevin Holland latch up a Dars or get a triangle. I like this the submission for Kevin Holland here. Like there's just a big trend in Chiesa's career where he always gets subbed, especially by strikers. Like it just always happens. He'll probably look really good in the first round. Like he'll probably get Holland down and he'll look like he's on his way to victory, but then I think Holland gets the submission. Because Chiesa's got a really good chin as well. Like he doesn't really get hurt that much on the feet. Like he can take big shots. So I don't think Holland will KO him. But also Kevin Holland's got some different power. Like this, he did rock Marvin Vettori in their fight. But he could maybe rock Chiesa briefly and then maybe latch up a Dars or something. But I just know somehow, some way, Michael Chiesa is going to get subbed. Now, moving on to a fight in the lightweight division. We have Tony Ferguson, El Kukui versus Bobby Green. It says Bobby Green, but I think his name's King Green now. So I heard that he was changing his name. I don't know if that's official or legally changed now, but yeah, we got Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green. And I think this fight's going to look really sad. I think Bobby Green is just going to jab up Tony Ferguson for 3 rounds. Now, it is at high altitude, so maybe Tony Ferguson can get something going, but 3 rounds doesn't seem to be enough for this version of Tony Ferguson. Like he might come on strong in the 3rd round, but even against Nate Diaz, he didn't look very good. I think this is going to be really sad. I think Bobby Green's just going to jab him up for 3 rounds, like just pitter patter him. Probably look like the Bobby Green Nasrat Haqparast fight, to be honest. Yeah, I'm a big Tony Ferguson fan, but I don't think this is going to go very good for him, which is unfortunate. So yeah, I expect Bobby Green by 30-27. Like I don't really know what's Tony Ferguson really going to do here. Like, yeah, I got to go with Bobby Green, 30-27, unfortunately. And then moving on, we have a fight in the light heavyweight division between Jan Blachowicz and Alex Poatan Pereira. Now, this fight's like really interesting because I don't know what way to like go for this fight. Now, honestly, this is my hot take about the fight. If either one of them decided to wrestle, I think they could just like win that way. Like I think Alex Pereira can get Jan Blachowicz down, and I think he could just hold him there. Like that might be a hot take, but Jan Blachowicz's like takedown defense just really isn't the best, like at all. Like we've seen him just have no resistance to takedowns, especially now in his career. Like at 40 years old, it's like his takedown defense just isn't there. Like Alex Pereira is like a big, strong guy. Only a 4-year difference between them, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I honestly, if either one of them just decided to grapple, they could just win the fight like that. They could just honestly do that. Like one of them could take the other one down in the first round, and then the other one could take the other one down, and then I think that would just be both just be stuck there for a round if they went that route. But I think this is going to be a striking fight. And see, it's such a hard fight to predict. I think I'm going to go with I think I'm going to go with Alex Pereira. I think he's going to TKO Jan Blachowicz. We've seen Glover Teixeira catch him with a hook. I know it's a whole different fight. Glover had the ground game and everything. But Glover, with Alex Pereira training so extensively with Glover Teixeira, I think the ground game's going to be up to par. And I think he'll have good advice from Glover on how to approach a Jan fight, knowing that Glover beat Jan. So I think Pereira's going to catch him with the hook. I don't know if he'll knock him out cold, but he'll rock him, and I think he'll just beat him up against the fence and get a stoppage that way. But I'm not completely confident in Alex Pereira here, especially coming off that KO loss to Adesanya. Maybe Jan Blachowicz could catch him, given Pereira didn't take the most time off. But the weight cut also, not having to cut all that weight down to middleweight, is going to do him some good. I think Clover said he's 230 pounds of muscle at the moment, so 6% body fat as well, apparently. So maybe we're just going to get a mythical fighter with Alex Pereira. But if Jan Blachowicz does lose, I hope he doesn't retire, because Jan's still got a shot at the top, even if he loses his fight. It's just all comes down to the game planning and everything, I reckon. But I think not the smart pick, but I'm going to go with Alex Pereira by TKO against the fence, but I'm not super confident. And now we're moving on to the BMF championship fight between Dustin the Diamond Poirier and Justin the Highlight Gaethje. Now, oh wait, a fucking big point. I don't know that Jan Blachowicz Alex Pereira fight is probably going to look really weird with a high altitude as well. I think if they both get tired, I like Alex Pereira to be able to catch him while tired, because we did see Alex Pereira against Adesanya. He was a bit tired in that first fight they had in MMA, but he still came back and KO'd him after seeming somewhat gassed. So I think even if he's gassed out, he's still dangerous, and I think he can catch Blachowicz even if he's gassed with a high altitude. But yeah, going on to the Dustin Poirier Justin Gaethje fight, I think I'm gonna have to go with Justin Gaethje. I know Dustin Poirier beat him in the first fight, but I think at this point in their careers, I think Justin Gaethje's looking a lot better. I think he's more motivated as well. He seems he really wants that last title shot. And we seen against Rafael Fiziev, he bulked up a bit, built on some muscle, and his cardio looked really well, really good against Fiziev. He was breaking Fiziev in that third round. And yeah, I was impressed with Gaethje in that fight. I really wasn't expecting him to beat Fiziev, and the fact that he did that is a sign that he's not going anywhere. He's not slowing down. I mean, I don't think he has many fights left. And maybe if he loses this, he retires. But maybe also Dustin retires if he loses, which is unfortunate if either of these two retire, because they're both legends and they both put on really entertaining fights. But I think Justin Gaethje training at Team Elevation with Kamaru Usman, and all them guys, I think is really going to help him with this high altitude as well. I feel like he can come on stronger in the later rounds because of him training at such high altitude all them years. And I know Dustin's been training at altitude as well, I believe. But I think Justin's just going to be so much more acclimatized to it. But it's going to be interesting. Dustin's obviously got that mental factor that he beat him in the first fight, but Justin's just built a little differently. I don't think he'll care that he lost the first one. So I think this is going to be a war either way, but I think Justin gets a late finish, maybe fourth round, just because with the high altitude and everything, I think we can see Dustin slow down in this one, but not the most confident pick in the world, but just because this being a high altitude. If this wasn't a high altitude, I'd pick Dustin. Well, I don't even know if I would pick Dustin, though, because Gaethje looked really good against Fiziev. Dustin looked alright against Chandler, but Gaethje definitely looked a lot better against Fiziev. But maybe Maybe Chandler's better than Fiziev. Who knows? Either way, they both beat Michael Chandler. Oh, but I guess Chandler had a more competitive. I mean, Gaethje had a more competitive fight with Chandler than Dustin probably. I don't know. It's interesting, but either way, styles make fights. And I know Dustin beat him the first time, but I think Justin takes this one. But like I said, not the most confident pick in the world, but yeah, I'll go with Justin Gaethje by fourth round TKO. I know their first fight that they had. I know that Dustin actually got him out in the fourth round, but I think he's going to get his revenge in the best way possible, getting that fourth round TKO back against Dustin. Which, yeah, it'd be crazy if he did. That'd be like really like good way to get your revenge by finishing him in the same round. Imagine if he finishes him in the exact same seconds. I don't think that will happen. I don't think it'll be that identical, but I think Justin Gaethje gets this with a late stoppage. Maybe third round is probably more realistic. We did see him come on really strong against Fiziev in the third round, but yeah, I think he's going to take this. But it's an interesting fight either way. It's going to be a fun one. I I don't know about this whole BMF belt thing, but fuck it, it is what it is. I think Jorge Masvidal said that he wants to wrap the belt around the winner as well, so it'd be interesting if he has to wrap it around Justin Gaethje, given Dustin's his teammate and everything. And Justin back in the day didn't have the nicest things to say about Jorge when he was fighting Usman and all this stuff, but I'm sure they're cool now and everything. But yeah, I think Justin Gaethje gets this, but I'm excited for this card. It's going to be a real good one. The fights on this should deliver, and there's like big stakes for all these fights as well, which is good. Like a lot of movement will come out of this, like especially in that co-main event. The winner of that could really find themselves fighting Yuri Prohaska for the vacant belt. Imagine Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prohaska. Like I really want to see that fight. But I also want to see Jan Blachowicz versus Yuri Prohaska as well. Just interesting matchups that can come from this card. Really, really excited for this. I can't wait. So yeah, thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, and put on notifications because I'll be making heaps of videos. Thank you.